And we're on. Welcome to Coaching Chats with Marina and Caroline.
I'm Marina from the Coaching Marina.
And I'm Caroline Day from Safe Day to Change. Hi,
Hi, Caroline.
Marina. It's so good to see you. Today, we're going to talk about the holiday feels, all of the holiday feelings, since obviously this will be airing in December. So, how do you feel about the holidays?
The holidays are a very exciting time. They have evolved and changed over the years, but now we are getting to a time where we can enjoy the holidays for ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. You're right. You're totally right when it comes to the holidays because the holidays change as we evolve, as we grow older. And I know you started talking a little bit about it before we started recording. So I want to hear a little bit more about what it feels like the holiday, as we grow older.
When I was a slightly bit younger, and I had young children, the holidays were very different for me. Everything evolved around my children and making sure that their Christmas or their, Thanksgiving or whatever the holiday season was magical for them. This really wasn't a holiday for me per se. I found my own joys in in those holidays by watching the wonder that happened within my children.
Hmm. So which did you celebrate both Thanksgiving and the end of the year holidays? Do you celebrate Christmas? Like what do you do?
Christmas, yeah.
Okay.
Thanksgiving and Christmas, big, big holidays, big holidays. Um, when my children were younger and we were in New York, I had my in-laws and there was always family and we always had um, a lot of food. And again, I'm Italian, so there's a lot of food. There's a lot of eating, and around the eating is that sense of family and um, joining together.
Mhm.
Now, what brings up and what comes up for me is as my children got older, the less and less they wanted to be a part of those family events.
Hmm.
Um, and it became reflective for me, which was like, I did exactly the same thing.
So when did you so for you first, like
Okay.
when did you stop like going to these events like the Thanksgiving or Christmas? And where would you go if you didn't celebrate it with the family?
I'd be home.
Oh, you just
I would have a very intimate, small group of people. If it wasn't, just my husband and, my children, it would just be a very small event.
Okay.
But growing up, family and having a large family, everyone would get around this table and they would be talking and drinking and eating and playing cards and just really enjoying hours and hours of each other, enjoying or not enjoying hours and hours of each other. But it was interesting because I didn't appreciate that level of family and community then as a child. Um, and that carried into my adulthood. It wasn't something that I felt I needed to have. So when holidays came around, you know, it almost felt obligatory
Mm.
part of these events. And I didn't appreciate the closeness
Yeah,
with
because
the
it was an
family.
obligation, right? You had to go. Like it was just the parents go, get up, get ready, and we're gonna go.
Yeah,
And so you just
you
felt like
buy
you
the
had
clothes and
to.
the dress and you put on these really uncomfortable clothes and you're sitting there and you're tugging at your own clothes and you're just like this is so uncomfortable and you go there and you endure it. say
Mm,
hello to everybody. You get asked a million questions, how are you doing in school? And like, how are you this, that? And you just endure it. I didn't appreciate the people that were there and that were, um, when they were gone. Now some of them are gone. Now I think back and I go, they cared. That's why they asked those questions.
mm. Wow, that's beautiful. I almost want to stay in this feeling a little bit. Hold on.
Right.
Yeah, let's lean into it. So
Yeah.
what, like, tell me an example. Are you talking about an aunt? Are you talking about a parent?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I thank goodness have both my parents still with
Okay.
me. There's my grandmother on my dad's side. Um, there's my aunt, who's my dad's sister. These are people who I saw often, and but again, not appreciating the moments that I did get to see them. We lived pretty far apart, a few hours away from each other, maybe like an hour, almost 2 hours away from each other. But when we did get to see each other a- as a child, and I'm talking like still in school child,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you didn't appreciate it. It wasn't the same. It was like, okay, well, and I'm gonna go see, grandma, I'm gonna go see, and you endure it and you can't wait to get home. And that was the kind of the feeling that I had growing up. I didn't enjoy, but sitting in this lens,
Mm-hmm.
looking at this whole situation and just being super grateful that they did care and they did love and they did want to see me and wanted to, be near me. I think I can look back on all of those things with great love and fondness.
Yeah.
Those
That's
holidays.
beautiful. I think, what do you think is the hardest part about going home for the holidays? And do you think it's too overwhelming, everybody asking maybe the same question, or maybe our own perception of, why they're asking? Are you just trying to be nosy? Like, why are you asking all of these questions?
Mm.
Like, what is it to you that was like, oh, I have to go and
I've got to get
endure
out. It
this?
was
What
an
is this?
overwhelming feel of playing the game of 20 questions in an attempt to find some sort of judgment, to pass judgment on the things that I was doing or not doing. Um, that's how it felt. That may not have been what they wanted to bring across, but to me, I always felt like the lens was on me and that I needed to say and do the right things or embellish or, not live in a truthful state because, I didn't want to feel judged, by this family, of which were pretty brutal when they had an opinion.
How so? Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Sometimes, and again, a lot of the way my family speaks is very interesting. It's this very passive aggressive way. It's like, oh, that's really great. Why don't you do this instead?
Mm,
Maybe this will be better for you. Or, and it was like, no, I'm kind of doing my thing. Thanks. Like, so there was always this, I am better than you, and I'm going to tell you what my opinion is, unsolicited.
yeah, I was going to say unsolicited opinion.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. And I could totally see that, right? Because I mean, I was born and raised in Brazil. And so I didn't celebrate Thanksgiving. So this was
Okay.
very new when I moved here to celebrate Thanksgiving. I thought it was a beautiful celebration to give thanks, to sit down around the table and be thankful and have a great meal. have two meals month, back to back, as opposed to just one. It was wonderful to see, right? And on top of that, I'm a Christmas baby
Oh, that's so
and I have a twin. So Christmas was huge for my family because we were celebrating me and my sister. Uh, and so it was a big deal, you know. But you're right. I think when you're talking about having family over and it's a lot of people, then obviously you have all of those family members, either, asking about it because they really care or asking about it and then without even noticing, directing their opinion and their perception onto what's going on in your life. But why aren't you doing this? It's like almost the perfect occasion for you to learn what they're doing and tell them what they're doing wrong, right? Or right. Sometimes they won't say anything to you because you don't share, but you see them sharing how beautiful and amazing all of the successful things that your cousins might be on their journey, right? And so now you're comparing. So, and I don't know if you've watched Four Christmases with Vince Vaughn and Reese Witherspoon, because if you haven't, that's your homework.
right. Thanks.
It is so good. It's called Four Christmases because they go to four very different family gatherings and they get to experience all of it that we're talking about. In fact, this is a couple that doesn't want to go to any of the families, but because their flight gets canceled, they are interviewed on TV
Okay.
at the airport because their flight got canceled on Christmas. And so the family sees them on Christmas and say, "Oh, you're not traveling. Why don't you come over?" And so they haven't seen the family in a long time and they get to go to all four houses. And then you get to see why people have so much anxiety about going home.
Yeah.
You see families, treating you exactly the way you were 20 years ago as, a baby or I'm the adult and you're not, even though you're a complete adult. And so you see the dynamic of, what's your relationship with your parents, with
Right.
your cousins, with people that grew up with you, or even like new people, right? Because she's bringing someone new. And so you see, the families bringing the album, making fun of little pictures. Oh my gosh, look at how she looked. Things like that that bothers people that nobody talks about. It's almost like an invitation in the occasion. It's an invitation to talk about it all and bring everything up. And it can be very overwhelming. So, like,
Mhm.
you lived it, right? Because my
Yeah.
family, again, was kind of small. We had a very intimate setting, for Christmas. We didn't celebrate Thanksgiving, but obviously that changed when I came here. But I want to hear from you because, it sounds like you have to watch this movie. It's
I
hilarious
will. I definitely will.
because it's really different. They're going to different places and they're actually all in California, which is hilarious. Um, and I feel like it's very fitting because in California you have very different suburbs, and city and big city and small city and a suburb and you can see the culture within that area or within that family dynamic where everybody just wants to talk a lot about each other or they know nothing about the two, but they have so many opinions about the two. And before, we came on, you were telling me how, you know, there's all of this, like we're not the same people that they knew, but yet they feel like they know you, and so they have an opinion about you. So how does that feel?
I have a little bit of a take on this whole thing. For the most part, and everyone is very different. People don't know their family, like really know them on an individual basis. And they don't spend time with their family as if they were friends. So they really don't know each other.
Hmm.
So,
Or the families that don't talk
right.
outside of that gathering.
Right. So it's like they're there for the holidays, they see each other for the holidays, or they see each other, every couple weeks, or, They're not in a relationship with their family member in the same way that they would be a friend, where if there's an issue or a problem or something that's going on in their life, their friend generally knows what's going on and kind of catches the nuances, where when you're with family and you haven't seen each other in a long time, or weeks have gone by or months have gone by, and everyone wants to know what each other is doing because they haven't had the chance to speak or talk to each other. So that's one very small perspective of that kind of line of questioning. They just want to know what's going on with you. Obviously the judgment piece of it afterwards is because they really just don't know how to talk to you. So they're like, well, obviously if you're saying this to me and it's something that's an issue, or I want to help, you're my family. I want to help in some way, so I'm going to give you this unsolicited advice. Um, Not knowing your family, like there's plenty of people in my family that I don't know. I love them. They're my family, but there's just people I don't know. I don't know their nuances, what goes on in their day to day. So when it comes time to get together for a holiday event, it's not an easy, smooth transition in speaking to them, other than, hi, haven't seen you in such a long time, tell me what's going on.
Hmm.
So you have to take it from the perspective of you just want, you care, and that you want to know what's, how they're doing, what they're doing. Um, so this is an opportunity to look at it differently instead of being overly taxed, where you're like, oh my gosh, I have to have so many conversations and I have to tell everyone what I'm doing. And I don't know how to put a positive spin on this, or, I don't want to have these conversations. You have to understand that, one, you don't have to tell anyone anything.
Hmm.
This is part of um, really protecting your own energy and your own space and your privacy. You don't have to feel obligated to share everything. You know, if you feel comfortable with the people that are around you and you are connected to them on such a level that is feeling safe for you, go ahead, share. They want to know because they care. And um, being able to open and say, this is what's going on. Just enjoying it. I'm enjoying the ride, and, watch me.
Hmm.
You're not leaving room to, so what is your opinion of what it is that I'm doing? Don't leave the room for it.
Yeah, I love that. So as a coach, right? So if somebody comes to you around the holidays and say, I want to go because I love, I don't know, my nephews and nieces, and it's an opportunity that I get to see them, but I can't stand, I don't know, my brother, or I don't talk to this aunt that is always there. And they're for sure going to approach me and they're going to want to know about my life, but I don't want to share any of it to them. What would be your like suggestion? Do you have a suggestion for people that are just trying to, politely, or like how do I handle a situation where I am going? It's not that I don't want to go. I just don't want to have these conversations with certain people in my family.
Right. First question that I would probably ask is, what does that family member make you feel? So I would pinpoint what it is. It could be anxiety, it could be sadness, it could be fear. There's like, run the list of negative, emotions. Being aware of how that person makes you feel, you're better prepared to protect yourself with with either whether it be line of questioning or even being in the same room with that person, there's a way to avoid, no, I'm gonna say avoid, but to be in the same space as that person and not have it affect you in the same way it did in the past. And everything is a very individual basis. And but ultimately, it is figuring out, being aware of how you feel next to this person, figuring out why that is, and then coming up with a strategy to be able to move forward and not have it affect you in the same way.
Hmm. Because you said the feelings, like identifying what the feeling is important. Like, how does that help necessarily to know what the feeling is?
Most of the time, people are uncomfortable with something and not understand the reasons why. So identifying the why behind it
Mhm.
helps to clear the way for a strategy to try to figure out how to move forward within that space. So if you have an aunt that makes you feel small or makes you feel just unhappy, if you figure those things out. Well, why is that? Well, maybe that aunt said something to you back when you were very young that was the course of the rest of your relationship with this woman. What is it about that statement or that issue or that situation make you feel? Why did it hit that pain point?
Mhm.
And once you identify what that is and are able to reconcile and say, you know what? That wasn't the truth. That was an opinion that isn't my truth. And
Mm.
now you've now minimized the severity of what that issue was. And now it doesn't hurt you in the same way. So when now you're standing next to that same person, it doesn't hurt as much. Not to mention, on another side of the perspective of this is, why would this person say this to you? Was it something that was going on with her or him? Maybe there was a situation, they were having an argument with somebody and they just came off wrong towards you. You don't know what is going on in that person's head. But is that statement your truth? Or is that feeling that they made you feel really a truthful feeling?
I love that. Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a true feeling for them, right?
Right.
But does it come from a truthful source,
Correct.
right? What was done? I love what you said because to me, like what I see is I try to find a way to separate the feeling from the responsibility, right? Because we all have feelings towards things that happens in our lives, in our, in our past, right? And so identify, I love that you said, we have to understand what the feeling is and why we're feeling this way. And then we have to challenge the narratives that we are telling ourselves because what hurts is not what a person did to us, it's how we handle what the person did or said to us,
Right.
right? It's the interpretation that we carried with us about that situation, right? And so when we're able to separate that and say, like you said, is this really true about me? And maybe it was true even then, but is it true now? Because you're not the same person you were before either.
Right.
And so that's also a way to separate the situation, right? You were not that kid that didn't know how to defend yourself. You are now an adult that is well capable of defending yourself.
Right.
And what they were saying was not, had nothing to do with you, right? Because, like you said, they might not even know you,
Right.
right? They said it based on their own perception of their own lives. That's where that comment came from, you know? and taking responsibility for what we hear. I did hear this and it did pain me, but it doesn't have to hurt me anymore. I don't have to see it the same way that I saw it when I was 10. I'm not 10 anymore. I can see this differently now. I can see the dynamic. I can see how they talk to their family members. This is not about me at all.
Right.
They react like this to their spouse, their kids. Who was I to even expect anything different when they are talking to me?
Yeah.
So, like you said, when you start looking at everything that is going on around you and you realize that you're no longer what you used to be or who you used to be, and now you can actually take responsibility and change the narrative, right? But then when the person is there, right, they might not have changed. You changed. The person didn't change. So, what would be a strategy that you use for when you do see that person again? Because they're expecting the same from you, right? Like maybe they see you as the same 10-year-old, right? Maybe they see you, you're still my nephew or niece. You're still younger than me. I'm still much older and much wiser than you. And so they might see you in the same eyes, but you can and you have a responsibility and a choice to choose differently and not see them the same. So, what's the strategy there for you?
Well, I love that you had said, first before I go, I love what you had said, just their perception of you, their opinion of you, their judgment of you comes through way before you even show up to the place. So when you are in that situation and in front of that person, they come with everything that other family members have said about you. And especially if you haven't seen these people in a long time, so everyone is getting little tidbits of things that are happening in your life. So no one has a full story. No one has really talked to you. So they have this predisposed, opinion of you. So when they go into a conversation like that, um, and that comes from, like you said, childhood and everything after that. The strategy is you now have to be you, the way you are right now in this moment. You're not like you said, you're not the 10-year-old anymore. You're not, even the teenager who, made a lot of mistakes and everyone was making fun of you. You're not that person anymore. So you present yourself as who you are today. Your energy needs to match it. You shouldn't go into a family gathering or any gathering matching the old energy that you had before, because that's not you anymore. So if you go into this family event and you are happy and you're there, grateful for just spending time with your family, and that's the energy that you carry through the whole thing, people are going to react to you differently. If, on the flip side, if you go into it nervous that people are going to be judgmental and they're going to, say, some really horrible things to you, then that's the experience, that's the energy that you're coming into it, and they're going to match that energy. So, by protecting your peace, your happiness, your joy, your gratitude for this moment, and especially it being Thanksgiving, the whole reason for this holiday is to give thanks. Stay in that energy, stay in on that frequency. And when you
Mm.
go into that event and you look around, there's going to be people who are not going to be here next year. And there, some people who are going to not be kids looking the way that they do anymore. Enjoy these moments because everyone grows up and everyone is not going to be there. So just enjoy the moment in the moment.
I love that. Yeah, be in the moment. I love that. Um, I People will come in with whichever energy that they already have, right? Like my energy is not going to affect, I mean, it may affect other people's energy, but I don't think coming, with a positive or negative is going to affect how other people are going to come with their energy because they also have their own energy to manage, right? If you will. What I will say is, after learning so much about family dynamic, because I had to learn a lot, I actually went to therapy because of family dynamic. And I think we talked a little bit about it, right? Like my coming from Brazil, I don't no longer have it, but I had a lot of resentment, towards family because I felt like I didn't get to live my full life as a Brazilian because there was a lot of change, right? But then what I learned is there's so many great things that happen because I moved. I am so blessed to have all of these new experiences that I got to experience. And so there's just so much good that happened. When you learn that you're no longer the same person, but that there are blessings behind what happened to you, what happened for you, and what happened through you. For me, the strategy that I normally teach others, but that was also taught to me, is to one of the things that I normally use, if somebody says something hurtful in the moment, let's say it's the same aunt, it's going to say the same thing, and it's going to be something that probably would have hurt you in the past. They're going to make a comment about your body. They're going to make a comment about something that happened. Oh, like you changed. They're going to make, some comment that is going to hold you in that position or is going to remind you of that pain. And so the strategy that I normally tell my clients is when that happens, you say, wow, that would have hurt me 2 years ago. Wow, I can see so much pain in this comment. Because when you separate the comment from you, it's almost like you're lifting up a shield and an armor
Yeah.
that I didn't have before. Before it was completely open. And as soon as you shoot that arrow, it just hurts right down there, right? Oh my gosh, your kid doesn't do this? Your kid doesn't do any sports? Wait, what do you mean? Oh, you look so different. Are you not exercising anymore? Like, what's happened? And I'm talking like, you know what I mean? Things that would hurt at some point in your life. So the strategy really is this about you? It's almost like what you said. Is this true?
Mhm.
Is this really about you? But one of the very effective strategies that I've learned is in the moment, you can actually pause and decide if that comment was for you or not.
Oh yeah, in the moment.
And so in the moment, you can say, wow, that would have hurt me a year ago. Last December, this would have been kind of achy. And now I know this is not about me because I'm in such a good place. And so, like these little strategies, these little tools, right? Oh, wow. I can see where they're at. It seems like they haven't changed.
Yeah.
And
Is
you don't have
there
to say it to them. You can
is
say
there
it
an
in your.
appropriate retort to something that's being said?
Is there something what?
Is there a reply that you suggest, your client to say if something hurtful is said to them, or that they would have found hurtful then? Is this something that you would suggest they would do?
Yeah. I mean, there are a few questions that you can always ask. If something is hurtful, you can just ask, why are you saying this? Why do you ask?
Hmm.
Because sometimes you can think that the question was to hurt
Yeah,
because it hurt before, but maybe you just need to understand where it's coming from.
yeah.
So, one very easy question is, why are you asking that? Where's this coming from? Why do you want to know that? And then by the answer, you're going to like find out. Or you can actually repeat the question to them.
Yes.
Because sometimes when you repeat the question to them and it wasn't intended to be positive, to be uplifting, they are going to feel it in the question,
Right.
right? Did you just ask me if my kid is going to there? Did you just ask me?
Yes. I think that's perfect. I love that. I love that retort. I typically, for myself, on a personal level, if something is being said, I just thank them.
Really? Give
I
me an
straight up
example.
thank them. Thank you for your assessment. I appreciate it. I think you look wonderful. Total disarming. I think you look wonderful then. You look fantastic. And end the conversation. You don't have to, like for me, I don't need to know specifically why this person felt it was needed to say the things that they said. I am basically in that statement letting them know that whatever it is that they said didn't reach me.
Mm, I love that. And you're right. You shouldn't want to find out why. It's only when you ask, they know that you paid attention to the
Right,
question,
right.
right? But I love what you're saying. I actually say that to my daughter all the time, and she doesn't like it. When she says something additional that it's not nice or it's not adding any positivity, I go, thank you for sharing.
Love
She
that.
just doesn't like it. I'm like, thank you for sharing. I don't like this. Thank you for sharing.
I
It's
appreciate
your opinion, and that's okay. You have an opinion. It's not my opinion.
Right.
So thank you
Exactly.
for sharing.
I love that so much.
Yeah, I think that that would definitely, I actually have used that as well for adults. But normally, the reason why we want, at least in my perspective, why sometimes we want to address it is because the people that are doing it, we do care about. If he was a stranger, maybe we would just pass it along. But sometimes it's coming from people that you really care about. And maybe they don't see that they're being distasteful in their comments.
Yeah.
And so you do want to address it. Not that you want to know why they're saying it, but you do want to address it because they are people you care about. Sometimes they are people that you want to continue seeing, but they're making it really hard for you to keep seeing them because of the comments, because of the way they're doing things, And so I normally like to address it, but it's so hard, at least for me, to do it head on because like at the same time that we don't know them fully,
Right.
we might know them in their worst moments, or we might have seen things in the past that it's going to trigger, people and they're going to be like, I'm not even going to go there, And so how do you handle that when you do love them? Let's say it's actually coming from a parent or from your kids. Like, how do you handle it knowing, this is not a one off? This is not a person that I'm not going to see again. This is a person that I actually want to continue to see and I want to keep them in my life.
But I agree with you. Yeah. When it's someone that you want a deeper connection with, yeah, asking them why they feel a certain way or why that what a comment, was there, is definitely a good strategy. But on a more like if you want to peel that down as to really what it is that you want, I know for me, I want my family to accept me. I
Mm,
wanted to be accepted and loved and um, sometimes when you have comments like that, that part of you, that core need is not being met. You are not being accepted. You're not being loved by having high critique
mm.
coming in your direction.
Why do you want to be accepted and loved
That's
by
a
your family?
great question, isn't it? So this is your family. This is your blood. This is maybe not even blood, but like these are your people
Mm.
that encompass your family. And out of everyone, you want them to love you on an unconditional basis. You don't want to have any judgment. You want them to love you no matter what.
Why?
Yeah, right. For
No,
me.
why? I didn't say right. I said why. Why
Right?
do
But I was like, right, that's a great question.
you?
Why do you want that? For me, that was my version and my idea of what real love is. You love someone unconditionally. You can do absolutely anything, bad, good, indifferent, and you
Mm.
are still going to be loved and accepted and adored. That's what I thought that was. So when you go into a situation where the people that are your family don't do that for you, something hurts. You have um, it makes you sad. There's many emotions that can come up when this happens, right? You have to sit with you and go, what is it that I want now as an adult from these people? And what I really want is not necessarily unconditional love. I want to be able to be free to be me in
Mm.
that situation. And I can choose that. I don't need them to be any certain way. I don't need them to be any different. I don't need them to change. I just need to attack this very differently. Go into a family event, go into, having conversations with family very differently. I respect and I'm grateful and love these people unconditionally.
Mm.
I do the unconditionalness. I don't need it from them. I can do that for me. And in that space, I can forgive them for comments or, the way that they are. I don't need to have it affect me in that way that it did previously.
Okay, so what you're saying is before the belief was I want to be accepted by them.
Yeah,
And that's very normal, actually. A lot of people want that from their family, especially their immediate family. They want to be loved and accepted for who they are as part of their family. Like
right,
if you're my mom and dad, you need to accept me for who I am as I am, right? That's a belief. And people think that that's a truth. A lot of people think, no, but that's true. That actually needs to happen. But the truth is, it doesn't,
right.
right? And I actually learned that from a book by Byron. What's the name of the book? Loving What Is,
Hmm.
you know? So, because it's not true, but because our belief is that they're family, they have to love me. They made me. They have to love me. They have to accept me as I am. And the truth is, they don't.
Right.
They don't have to accept you the way you are. The only person that has to accept you the way you are is you.
Yes.
And so when you accept you for who you are, no matter who accepts you, because nobody has to accept you as you are but you, and you no longer believe that somebody needs to accept me, that I want acceptance from anyone, then it doesn't hurt
Right. Well,
because
not
that
as
belief
much.
is no
Yeah.
longer there. If somebody doesn't love me or say something unlovable, they go, you can say, well, they don't have to love me. I love them. They don't have to love me. Even if they are in the position that they are, you know, they're parental, they are my siblings, they are my kids. The truth is, nobody has to love you.
No, it's true.
You love yourself. And when you accept that the love that you have for yourself is enough, that you are enough without mom, dad, sibling, anybody, even immediate family, You love yourself and you are enough, and you choose who you're going to love, conditionally or unconditionally, then whatever they say, it doesn't have to be true either, because that belief is no longer there. And I love that you said that. I used to believe this. Now I don't. Now I choose to love them unconditionally.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
a beautiful switch when you are really at peace and love yourself and you're living in your own truth and you go into a situation where there's a lot of family around, that comes through. And I know it doesn't necessarily be like a verbal thing. When you have that, I use the word confidence, when you have that presence, is more it. When you have that presence that you are truly at peace and happy with yourself, that travels. And especially with the people who you are connected with within your family. They can be able to feel that. I'll use an example. When in previous times, I would go to these events so nervous and so like, that would come through before I walk through the door. And as soon as I walk through the door, what's wrong? What's going on? Is everything okay? I didn't have to say anything. My presence was that I was feeling anxiety over what of being there because I didn't want to say all the negative and bad things that were going on in my life, right? Instead of focusing on I'm living and going through something and this is just where I'm at right now, but I'm happy with my own progress. And having that presence and that energy going in there and saying, this is what I'm working on. This is very exciting time for me, and I'm super, super happy about this.
Mm, that's
It
beautiful.
gives off a very different presence.
Yeah, I agree. It gives a different presence, but I still believe, and maybe you're lucky, I still believe that people don't see what you're living through sometimes. Somebody can be, and I'll give you an example. Somebody in the family can be completely happy in their 30s, single, completely happy. But their parents or their aunts are like, oh no, they're sad because they are not in a relationship. Because by this time they don't have kids. They
Oh,
are
yeah.
sad, right? And you're thinking, no, they are happy. Like they're just fine. They're doing well. But in their minds, and whatever it is, right? Like in their minds, they're like, no, nobody can be happy if they're, by themselves, or they have these like their own perception of what happiness is. Or maybe if they were alone, they would be so sad that they project their sadness. I would be so terrified to be alone. I would be so sad to be alone. And so, therefore, you are alone because therefore you're sad because you're alone. And that's not the case. And the person can project the happiest. I'm happy. I live a life really well. But it does it for some reason. And like I said, maybe it's not your family members, but I do know and I've seen
But
it.
even in that, even using that same instance, right? If you are happy, truly happy where you are in life, and a comment is said, you could then, your retort is, that's their understanding that that's their belief,
Right.
right? You
But it
have
doesn't change their
you
belief.
will
You can be the
right.
happiest. It still won't
There's
change.
not a thing that you can say to change this person's opinion about their own beliefs, right? It
Right.
is your belief that actually makes a difference. So if you say, and the retort is, I'm actually very, very pleased with myself, and I'm very happy with where I'm at right now. And leaving it at that, the responses and your energy when it comes to this is very important because if you even crack open a little bit of a door, like, yeah, I want to have a relationship and, maybe one day or whatever, they'll be like, yeah, that's right. That's right. You protect you. And this is the main thing that you have to protect what it is in your own beliefs and not allow the rest of your family or the people that you have around you project their beliefs onto you. Protect that energy and protect that safety that you have for yourself. And that's really what this all comes down to. Everyone is going to be who they are. The only
Yeah.
person you can change is yourself.
Right. Yeah. But I think that's what's unfortunate, right? Like maybe the person is happy. Let's go back to that example. But because they hear differently, it's almost like the fact that people are able to plant a seed and they are going home and going, you know what? Maybe they're right. The fact that there is that ability of people to do it, I guess it's our urge, mine and yours, to remind people of what we say and how we say things, right? Because we never know how it would affect another person, you know, and we don't want that for them.
No,
Sometimes we think that a comment or something is so innocent, but it can actually really affect somebody else. So be mindful in this holiday season, right? Of what you say, what your perception is versus their perception. When you're sharing, make sure that you do say that that's your opinion only, right? Because what you say to others may affect the way that they see themselves,
definitely.
right? And the intention is to be nice, especially because for bigger families, it can be very overwhelming. They're seeing a lot of people for the first time. There's going to be, opinions, like in our family, for example, people get to know about, what's going on through, siblings or the parents. Oh, this is what happened to this family, and it goes around, the
It's a
news
game
goes
of
around.
telephone,
Yeah, exactly. So and so
you
got
know?
divorced. So and so had a child. So and so did this. And so it can be very overwhelming because we know that as family, especially as the bigger the family, the bigger, the news or whatnot. And so it can be very overwhelming because we know that there is a conversation that is being had without you and then one with you. And that's all like very overwhelming for people, you
That's
know?
exact what you are describing is exactly how it was. Being a topic of conversation within my family, I was like the topic of conversation in my family, I felt like. And that may not have been the truth, but that's kind of how I felt, right?
Mhm.
Going through some very difficult things, being the only family member in my entire family to ever be divorced.
Wow.
So that was like,
Congratulations.
I know. Thanks so much. Um, I wear it like a badge.
You should.
So there's definitely there's some definitely like, what are they thinking? Oh, look, I didn't do things right. So my marriage fell apart, or whatever, again, it's been some time since I've had to connect to what happened then, but I always felt like, yeah, I was a topic of conversation, not to mention that the whole family was down, in one state and I was way up in another state all by myself. I wasn't part of family events. So when they had conversations about me, I don't know what was being said. I know that I was telling, whoever did call me what was going on to the best of my ability at that time, coming from a very difficult place, trying to describe it. But my point is like if you're have an entire family that's playing a game of telephone about what it is that's going on in your life, and then you show up to an event, everybody wants to know what's going on. So I had to relearn that they cared enough about me, and that not because they wanted to look at and dissect everything that was going on with, they cared that I was going through something and they just wanted to know what if I was okay.
Mm, I love that. You have a good family. I could
I
totally
do.
tell.
I have an amazing family. I love them so much.
So, what are you going to do for this holiday? Tell us.
Okay, Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, I'm actually going to Thanksgiving for the first time in quite some time with my mother's side of the family. lots of people, like almost 30 people. It's going to be quite interesting. There's, my parents and aunts and uncles and cousins and, so it's just going to be really great to reconnect with everybody for sure.
Oh, that's great. And so so what do you guys celebrate? Do you guys do the whole traditional turkey sides and everything?
And throwing in the little Italian, there's got to be some sort of pasta. There's got to be some sort of like, Italian, pastries and bread and but yeah, I mean it's ridiculous the
That
amount of.
sounds fun. That sounds fun. So I'm gonna spend it with my in-laws. So usually I do. I either go to my in-laws and we have a feast there, but we have also hosted a few Thanksgiving dinners here at the house as well, but not this year. This year will be in the in-laws, which is
Phew.
always.
Now you don't have to clean.
I know. Yeah, no, and they're great like cooks for sure. My mother-in-law is the real chef of the family.
Really?
Yeah,
Good.
she's
Yeah.
great. She's the second Martha Stewart.
Oh, that's
She's
gonna be really good.
yeah, yeah, does it every time. So it's great. Yeah.
Do
We're
you
excited.
do you have any like reservations of going, or is this an easy breezy kind of feel to it?
Ooh, what a good question. It is an easy breezy this year. Yeah, but we've definitely had our ups and downs. It got, I think when we first started having, the Thanksgiving and the Christmas, it's obviously hard for my in-laws because I was born on Christmas Day. And so they never had to share Christmas with anybody before I came in, and so, and even before when my parents were in California, so we would spend the 24th at my mom's and then the 25th at my in-laws. But now that my parents moved to Florida, now we alternate. And that must have been hard, for my in-laws because every other year we spend it somewhere else. We still do an early dinner with them and we exchange presents and everything. And they're so nice. They've always celebrated my birthday in a really special way. So we
Oh,
do, the dinner, but then we have, the cake and presents for me after everything. So it's just wonderful. It really is. It
beautiful.
wasn't always like that. And I think, since, we're in the topic, right? Like, I think it's also comes down to culture.
Yes.
Remember, like, they were born and raised here, but my mother-in-law is her descendants is Portuguese. So even though I speak Portuguese, she doesn't, but she understands a little bit. But she's Portuguese, from Portugal, right? Her family's from the Azores. So very different dynamic, right? And so her family being like very Americanized, she held always like really big dinners with people coming over and the cousins and everybody coming over. It was very different than in Brazil when I was doing it with just our immediate family. It had always been my mom and dad and my siblings, and so going in having the family dynamic, experiencing a little bit of, what we just talked about, a little bit of gossip, a little bit of like discontentment in a comment, like that carries through the entire year. And then you have to meet again. And how are you going to handle that? But throughout the years, I think there has been so much healing, I think for me, and because it trickled down to my family, because I did so much work in myself that I end up seeing, healing in the family as well. So now I'm very fortunate to say that we have a very nice dinner and everybody's great. You know what I mean? And also after the birth of my daughter, too, that I really feel like, the families got really, really close, because before it's like when you're married and you don't have kids, it can be different. But then once my daughter was born, I think that there was a lot more union as well. So it was beautiful.
That is beautiful. That is
Yeah.
very beautiful. And like we, when we first started this episode, we were talking about the dynamics. It changes, as you go through your life, what holidays mean for you as a child to teenage years, and then, in your 20s, 30s, and so on. It's almost like every decade it changes, and how you take it in, what you appreciate, what you don't, what's difficult, what isn't, but standing on this side of it and just being able to look at the last, 5 decades and go, I'm appreciative, of everything and all of the ways that I have been able to appreciate the holiday season.
That's
You
beautiful. When was the last time that you hosted and all four kids were in the house? Do you remember?
I want to say the last time I had all four kids in the house, and there's maybe maybe about 4 or 5 years ago
Okay.
was the last time, and they put up the Christmas tree together, and we had the music on, the Christmas music on, and we, danced around. And one of my traditions for Christmas is that every year I get another ornament. So the kids, when they were younger, would make the ornaments for the year. And as they're pulling out each ornament, they're looking like, oh, when I was, 9, I made this ugly ornament and we're putting it on the tree. Like we were able to provide them, even though we're a blended family, we've been able to provide them a sense of, unity and family during the holiday season. And that was one of the ways. So it's been a couple of years since we've been together like that.
Oh, that's wonderful. I actually do have, I'm going to share something because I know parents of young children will probably relate. So, my daughter, when she found out that Santa Claus didn't exist, she was very upset with me
I'm sure.
because she thought my mom lied to me. And she even went to my sister one day and said, I don't know if I can trust my mom again. She lied to me. It was a really big deal for her to learn that Santa Claus didn't exist and that I was lying. And I never would have imagined that this would be her reaction, to be completely honest with you. I thought she was just going to be like all other children. I remember when I found out, it was more like fun than anything else. I remember going, "Ha, it was my parents. I knew it," or whatever, like, but more fun than like I feel betrayed. My daughter feels betrayed by me, and she found out because of the tooth fairy. So she was reading a book, which I'm totally against. It's a comic book of unicorns. And when the kid is sleeping, the unicorn is in the room, and the dad comes into the room to drop the money, to exchange the money for the tooth. And then the unicorn says, Wait, so you're the tooth fairy? And so, because she's reading this book, she had no idea that the tooth fairy didn't exist. And she goes, Mommy, is it true that the tooth fairy doesn't exist? And I'm thinking, Oh no, who told her? Like she's not even done with all the teeth yet. You know what I mean? And I was not expecting to tell her any earlier. And then I was like, but I didn't want to lie to her. And so I said, yeah, it's true. Like they don't exist. And I was like, how did you hear? So she shows me in a book and I go, how dare they? And so she goes, don't tell me that Santa Claus doesn't exist either. And I had to tell her the truth. And so it really sting her. And even though now I tell her, I said, look, the reason why they do is because, they want families together. It's just a way of you writing a letter to getting what you want, getting the presents under the Christmas tree by, like this imaginary person and having like an imagination and believing in the magic. It wasn't meant to like hurt you in any way. You know what I mean? But like, I don't know, like, did you have anything like that happen to
Oh,
you when
yeah.
your kids were young?
Yeah. I never really wanted to perpetuate the Santa Claus tooth fairy thing,
Mhm.
but because societally we were like, this is what we do, right? We grew up with that tooth fairy, Santa Claus, the whole thing, Easter Bunny, like there's a
Yeah,
whole lot of them,
yeah.
right? Um, when it came to Santa Claus specifically, hello, um, it was my friends who were like, he doesn't exist. I was in elementary school. I remember it being like, it was a conversation, like all of a sudden, Santa Claus doesn't exist. And then I went home and it was a very, again, matter of fact, like, you're right. Yeah, no, he doesn't exist. The magic is now gone, right? What we do for our children, and the reason why, at least in my rationalization, was like, I wanted to provide that same magic of the season to my kids. And especially when all of the most awesome Christmas movies and like, shows and stuff have this Santa Claus and
Exactly.
Rudolph and, like, oh, right? And
Yeah.
you just are perpetuating this beautiful magic. Polar Express. I mean, like, there's a million beautiful Christmas movies that
I
feel
know.
like inspirational and like how amazing. So, I wanted to provide the same thing for them. But when it came time for them, I perpetuated as long as I possibly could because I wanted to keep that magic for them. And then when they found out, well, I would say that they were pretty, oh, I was able to keep it for quite a while. I want to say past 10 years old. Yeah, I was able to I was able
I wish. I
to
wish.
perpetuate it. Um, but and that was my explanation, that I wanted to just give you that little bit of magic, and now you get clothes, for Christmas.
Yeah.
Now you get clothes and underwear and socks. That's what you get.
Exactly. I just feel bad, like I don't know if there are other mothers out there, but I feel really bad. Even the elf in the shelf, on the shelf.
We didn't have that.
I
I didn't have that.
remember, like you're supposed to put him out on December 1st, and she woke up December 1st and I forgot. And she was running around the house and going, "He forgot about me." And I had to write an apology letter from the elf, like when she came back from school, saying, "I got here late, there was traffic or something like that." And then I finally got here. But now to know that everything is, like really a lie, it's so sad that in order for us to portray this magic that happens with the holidays, that we're telling them a story that is not really true. And my daughter's very sensitive, and
Would you
so
have done it differently?
I just wish she had not read that. I wish,
Yeah.
like if she was just a little bit more mature, if she was like 11 or 12 and found out, I don't think it would have been such a big deal. But because she found out pretty early, it was a huge deal for her. I think she found out she was 8, and it's when kids are still believing, So it's just kind of sad. But it's part of what happened, right? And
True.
so, but she wants the elf on the shelf to come up. So I actually wrote her a letter for this year, apologizing and showing her what the real meaning of the holidays is and how I want her to just enjoy, this coming month of December so that she can be in the spirit of Thanksgiving and gratitude and kindness so that she can, still enjoy without having, the idea. Now she sees a Santa at a mall and I go, "Do you want to go take a picture?" She's like, "No, I don't want to sit on a stranger's lap."
That's so fun.
It's really different. I'm
So
like,
different. But I think that's the whole point, right? You go through these transitions and what happens when you have kids and then, when they're older, uh, to provide any sort of magic, any sort of like anything that connects them to the spirit of the season,
yeah,
and that was all I wanted to do for my kids.
of course. Yeah. Oh, this was so great.
It's so great. I know we have so much more to get into, but we could do that next one.
We can. It's great seeing you. I love doing this with you.
Ooh,
I look forward to our next episodes.
I do as well.
Bye, guys. Thanks for watching.
See you.